Golden State Media Concepts Baseball Podcast. We cover everything Major League, from spring training to the World Series. We've got your favorite club covered, from New York to Boston to LA. This is the Golden State Media Concepts Baseball Podcast.
Hello and welcome into another edition of the GSMC Baseball Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network. I am your host, Kevin Mahalik, and welcome into episode 209. That's right, episode 209 of the Baseball Podcast here on Monday, July 20th. Hopefully everybody had a lovely weekend out there. I myself got a couple of rounds of golf in. It was a lot of fun. Friday, had a mini bachelor party round of golf. A buddy of mine was getting hitched on Saturday. Amid the pandemic and the chaos, we were able to get out and play 18, had some fun there. And then Saturday getting out, it was my father's birthday, so playing 18 once again with him and the brother-in-law. Just enjoying the weather, getting a nice tan, a slight burn out there as the weather was beautiful here in the greater Philadelphia in the 90s. Felt like triple digits over the course of most of the weekend, and it finally felt like summer and felt like baseball. And we are getting ever so close here. Like I said, this episode being released on the 20th. The first games, of course, coming Thursday evening, and then Friday, everybody opening up here. And I can't wait to talk to you guys about an actual baseball game on this Thursday's episode. But once again, welcome in Evan to the squad. You guys are well aware out there, since you're a subscriber on the podcast, on Apple Podcasts or Spotify or wherever you get your podcasts. You know, let everybody know to subscribe and share the GSMC Baseball Podcast. But Evan's joined the team here as baseball is coming back, going to be playing every day. We want to bring you guys great quality content 4 times a week here at least. So I myself will be Monday, Thursday. Evan will be at least Tuesday, Friday moving forward, and we'll be talking to you guys about everything baseball. Some of the conversation or topics may overlap, but we'll certainly have a difference of opinion, I'm sure, at least at some point. I know we're both on board with the Cincinnati Reds. Listening to Evan's episodes this past week, he was high on the Reds. Sounds like he's been listening to the podcast for the past couple of months. Jump on board, Evan. Let's go, baby. I know we're not the only ones, or I wasn't the only one saying that, but the Reds for sure, that rotation, certainly scary. So welcome once again, Evan. Everybody be nice. Rate us 5 stars, write a review. Let us know what you think of the podcast, as always, as well as stay subscribed to social media. Now that Evan's on the squad, he can really put a lot of time into social media. I try to do the same. Certainly the lack in that situation from time to time as a 31-year-old. Maybe I'm not as good as that social media world as Evan, who's just getting out of college there in Minnesota. But once again, thanks again, everybody, for listening here. Let's dive right into today's episode. We got a great one lined up for you here today, starting out at the top of the show with the Toronto Blue Jays. And it is now official that the Canadian government has come out and ruled that the Blue Jays can't come and go from Canada as they please. The Canadian restrictions on this coronavirus are very intense, to say the least. Anybody who enters the country has to quarantine themselves for 14 days or is subject to a fine of up to, I believe, $750,000. Yeah, seriously, like $750,000 potentially fined and jail time if you don't abide by the rules. And the NHL, since it is a hub city and will not be coming and going from the city of Toronto, is able to abide by these rules. They're able to get there ahead of time, quarantine themselves, and thus be able to play in Canada. Well, Toronto, based in North America, Major League Baseball, not playing in the hub cities due to the television contracts, they would have to come and go from Canada every 4 to 6 days, as well as every other team in the East. Since it's the East versus East, it would essentially be Washington, Philadelphia, New York, Miami. What are the other cities? Baltimore. All these towns, Tampa Bay, coming into Toronto to play baseball, doing their thing, mingling amongst the crowd. Yes, they'll be sequestered and they'll do their best to be safe and be isolated, but they're certainly going to have at least some sort of interaction with workers at the hotel who then go home to their families. Their families go to work, and of course, we know how the virus spreads. I'm not a doctor. I don't need to explain it to you here, but the Canadian government said, no, we're not about that life. We've done a crazy tremendous job containing this virus, and I myself had to look it up at least twice to confirm these numbers. I know the population, yes, isn't 1-to-1, but if it's 2-to-1, 3-to-1, 4-to-1, that's not even going to matter. So looking at the numbers here in the USA, as of Sunday night here, time of recording, Google is telling me, CDC, 3.83 million cases. So basically the USA is going to get to 4 million cases. I mean, we're getting what, 40, 50,000 cases per day? That means we're only 6-7 days away from 4 million. So throw it at 4 million, use round numbers, because that's what I like here at the Baseball Podcast. Well, Canada has 110,000 cases. Literally, it looks like yesterday the USA added 60,000 and Canada added 322. Worldwide, there's 14 million. In Canada, you got 110,000. And basically, what Canada and the government is saying is, hey, if we allow this to happen, all of our hard work is just going to turn back into a petri dish. Everybody from Miami is going to come into town here for a weekend, then leave. And then from Tampa Bay, and then from New York, and all these places where these cases have astronomical numbers, comparatively speaking, to other locations or parts of the world. It's just, I completely understand. Honestly, I didn't think this was going to be the answer. This is one of the things, and kudos to the Canadian government, I suppose, not being completely run by money or the economic situation. They understand the city of Toronto would benefit this, but they are getting the NHL bubble, so maybe the boom that they could possibly have from having Major League Baseball on site isn't worth the bust, in their opinion, of having a possible outbreak or spread, which then leaks into the NHL bubble, and you can't even have the NHL postseason. So pretty much Canada said, hey, we're good with the NHL. That's going to help us move forward baseball. Kind of do your thing. And of course, that leads to the follow-up question of, well, where the heck are the Blue Jays going to play? What are we doing here? What are our options? And there have been basically 3 options floated out there. Really, 2 of them seem to be options A and B, and then all heck breaking loose from there. But the first one is going to Florida, going to Dundon, going to the spring training facility. The biggest challenge there would be health concerns. The Blue Jays have stated it's a spring training facility, so they have everything they would need. But in regards to its location in Florida, as well as the housing, logistics, and infrastructure of off the field, it could be extremely challenging health-wise because they're going to have their guys in a hotel the entire time. Are they going to rent out like an apartment complex with golf and allow them to do that when they're at home and not playing? And what's the deal here? So a lot of challenges when it comes to the logistics and health and safety of the players if they were to play down in Florida there at a spring training facility, which is not a hometown where you can go home to a house and things along those lines, such as the Marlins and the Rays and the other teams that are based out of Florida. But option B, and I think ultimately the option that may play itself out, is everybody is talking about going to Buffalo. Buffalo being right across the bridge there, into the USA being as close as you can get proximity-wise for these players. Once again, they wouldn't be able to live in Canada and commute back and forth because you would have to quarantine every time. So they are still going to have to find housing and infrastructure in the city of Buffalo. But Buffalo, being a major metropolitan city, comparatively speaking, of course, but a city, everybody knows Buffalo, there's going to be better housing, hotels, situations, things that are available for the likes of a professional franchise and being able to leverage partnerships from the Sabres and other people in that city. So Buffalo, however, though, is a AAA facility. And the issue and problem with Buffalo is the challenges of getting the facilities to MLB standard, because there are different standards as you go up the chain in the minor league system. A, AA, AAA, the bigs, of course. And basically, AAA standards are not that of the big leagues, which is fair. So they would have to go in and provide a new clubhouse almost. They would have to do upgrades to the medical training room, the lounge area, the clubhouse, the visiting clubhouse in particular as well. The visiting side of AAA levels aren't the best. On the home sides, I've been underneath. I've hit in the cages in AAA Lehigh Valley for the Iron Pigs, which is a beautiful new stadium. Buffalo, not as new, not as nice as Lehigh Valley. So that would be something that they'll probably have to implement if they're going to play there. You got to have a cage underneath to be able to get some work in as you're getting ready to go into the game, as well as the stadium would need a lighting upgrade. I didn't even think about that, but doing some research and looking at it, apparently the lighting situation from the majors to AAA also is a different standard, which certainly, after reading it in retrospect, makes a ton of sense. I mean, look at the light poles at the big league level, and then look at a minor league facility, and you're going, oh, okay, wow, that really is a difference there. So they would have to do all of that, and again, we're looking at about 10 days here. I guess Major League Baseball knew this could potentially be an option. They were very much hopeful that it wouldn't be. But because of this, they put they put Toronto on the road to start the season, and their first home game isn't until July 29th. So everybody opens the 24th. Well, Major League Baseball gave Toronto 5 extra days to figure out what the heck they're going to do moving forward. But Buffalo seems to be the option. I said earlier 3 potential solutions. The third one that Bob Nightingale reported, a reporter out there who's very well known, USA Today, I believe, for the MLB, reporter for them. And he said that they could possibly share Tropicana Field with the Tampa Bay Rays because it is a major league stadium. It's close enough to their spring training facility where they could use that for their taxi squad situation and then play at the Trop when Tampa's on the road and essentially alternate every home date, but that wouldn't be an option because the schedule's already created. So I don't know what the heck they're going to do. It's going to be fascinating to kind of watch it and follow along, but they got to get an answer sooner than later. So maybe by Thursday when I'm back talking to you guys again, I'll have something for you and we'll have closure on where Toronto's going to play. But my money's going on Buffalo ultimately being the solution moving forward. And continuing the first segment here, kind of news and notes, jumping around the league, touching on the Atlanta Braves here. Wrapping up the first segment, we touched on Toronto there, now hopping over to the NL East and the Atlanta Braves. Yasiel Puig, thank you for your time. Hashtag 2020. He made it about 12 hours, 14 hours. Evan spoke about it a lot on the podcast, how he could really impact the NL East. And ultimately, you shouldn't laugh at it because of the reason for what's happening here. But knowing all of the details, Yasiel Puig is fine, healthy. He's more or less asymptomatic, but he tested positive for the coronavirus. He came to an agreement with the Atlanta Braves, and with that agreement comes testing for the coronavirus, where it came back and he was positive. He was very surprised. He feels good. He hasn't lost any weight. He was asymptomatic. However, that positive test basically nixed that agreement with the Atlanta Braves, and he will not be in the NL East this year. And looking at a lot of the different rosters, I don't know if we're going to see him sign here before the start of the season. This could be one of those mid-year additions based on an injury or based on a positive test elsewhere. Hey, come here, we need you to fill in for 2 weeks. But Yasiel to Atlanta, as a Phillies fan, I can't hate on it. Honestly, I wouldn't have wanted to play against him this year 20 times or whatever the exact number comes out to be. But, of course, you don't want anybody to test positive, but the fact that it came out that he's fine, he's asymptomatic, is just, man, 2020 in a nutshell, right? You know, in the middle of the day, hey, Yasiel Puig's back. By the next morning, you find out, whoop, no, he's not. He's positive. He's out. And it's just, it continues to be a total roller coaster here. But Atlanta Braves, coronavirus, there's a bit of a theme here, unfortunately, for you fans out there of the Braves. Freddie Freeman, good news. He has returned to practice. He is back playing. He feels back about 100%, going on 9 to 10 days here, depending on when you're listening to this podcast, of symptom-free consecutive days. But Freddie Freeman came out, spoke about it over the weekend for the first time, and said that he had a fever of 104.5 at one point. And that is a really high number. It really is. And he said he prayed that night that things would get a bit better because it's the hottest he's ever been. He didn't kind of comprehend feeling that way and understanding how something could just be running so hot. But ultimately the fever broke back down to 101, and then a few days later back under the 100 mark, and that was really the worst of it. But I couldn't imagine kind of taking my temperature and seeing 104 and just being like, oh my God, this is, oh man, I run hot as it is. Adding 6 degrees to kind of the standard there has obviously made this aware that it's nothing to mess with. But he reported Friday, like I said, he plans to get in there as much as possible over the weekend or this next week. Will he be ready for opening day? We're not sure yet. He told reporters that he only lost 1 pound, even though he did have this fever and was sweating. He was able to maintain weight once everything kind of normalized and stabilized, which is a good situation to be in. Obviously, health-wise, if you're losing 10, 15 pounds, along comes the strength and everything with that muscle and weight. So Freddie Freeman still in good shape, trying to work his way back. The Braves said they're going to give him as much time as he needs here working his way back. The plan or the hope is for opening day, but if it's a few days after that, I certainly don't think Braves fans can be too upset based on what we now know and what we've learned in regards to what Freeman has gone through here. But because of what Freeman is dealing with, the Braves brought in Yonder Alonso, put him on the 40-man. Shout out Yonder. I played against him in college way back in 2007. I myself at Lehigh, he was at Miami. We played down there in Coral Gables. That year, it was the first baseman. He would just casually hit 376 with 18 home runs and 76 RBIs. Ultimately became the number 7 overall pick. Him and his buddy there at second base, Jamil Weeks, Ricky Weeks' brother. He was the 11th or 12th overall pick that year. Jamil didn't make it as long in the show as Yonder has here, obviously 13 years later. So Yonder hasn't performed at quite that level in the bigs at 376, but it was fun to watch him play firsthand. Fun to be down there at Coral Gables going against number 1 in the country, Miami, and only losing about 8-3, and it was 3-2. Going to the bottom of the 6th, we had him on the ropes, and then our bullpen let it up, and we couldn't pull the upset. But it was a ton of fun being down there and a great experience being on the field at Miami and interacting with those guys and just kind of seeing, what number 1 in the country looks like as us being a smaller level Division I program. That was a fun trip for sure. But that'll wrap it up here for the first segment of the GSMC Baseball Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network. We'll pause right now for a word from one of our sponsors and one of our sister shows. But when we come back, we'll get into some more news and notes. And we've actually had some preseason baseball. Is that right? Spring training baseball? What are we calling this? Summer camp ball? I don't know what it's called. But come on back, guys. We're going to talk about it.
This is your ultimate stop for everything sports. The Golden State Media Concepts Sports Podcast. Should I say more? From the NFL, MLB, the NBA to MMA, it's all in here. The Golden State Media Concepts Sports Podcast. Listen now.
Welcome back, everybody, to episode number 209 of the GSMC Baseball Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network. I'm your host, Kevin Mahalik. It is Monday, July 20th. Oh, man. We're here, ladies and gentlemen. I feel like quoting, what is this, the Greatest Show or the Greatest Showman? Ladies and gents, this is the moment you've been waiting for. Oh, my God, baseball is here. I'm watching baseball as I'm recording this in the studio. I got the Fightin' Phils on. They're currently losing to the Orioles. Of course, they are. I mean, as I hype myself up mentally for the Phillies, hey, they could make a run. Let's go. Let's do this. I have a side podcast that I do based on Philadelphia sports radio show there as well, so very tuned in to the Phils. And then they go out and are going to dump one here to the Orioles. So typical Philadelphia fashion, get your hopes up early on. I can't wait for them to dump a couple against the Marlins early in the year and just bring us back to earth as we're stoked that baseball's returning. But jumping into some news and notes here as we get closer and closer to the start of the regular season. Jacob deGrom, we spoke about it on last week's episode. He is optimistic about opening day. I was not. I was pessimistic, to say the least, last episode. But Jacob deGrom, optimistic about opening day. The plan is for him to start. I still don't think it's going to happen as we're here on the night of the 19th. But if he does go opening day, 3-4 innings, I guess we can count that. But that's basically the top end of my expectations or my ambitions for Jacob deGrom here in his first start. I think it would benefit them to pass through one time through the rotation and then get him healthy and situated. But as I talk here, Andrew McCutchen singles to right field, makes it 2-1 Orioles, so he heard me complaining just a moment ago. But live baseball, let's jump into some of those results here. On Saturday the 18th, we had 3 Major League Baseball games or preseason summer camp. I don't know what it's called, but the Phillies and Nationals played each other in Washington. The Fightin' Phils won 7-2. They were led by 3-run home runs with Bryce Harper and Didi Gregorius leading the way. It was an excellent swing by Didi. Didi is wearing the mask full time. He is one of the players out there who has said he's going to wear it in the field and batting, and he's very comfortable wearing it. He himself has a pre-existing kidney condition that he considers himself high risk, or doctors consider him high risk. So he is going to take all the necessary precautions to try to be as safe as possible. So we see there right off the top of the bat, it doesn't seem to be hampering his eye-hand coordination or his vision at all. But he will have a mask on, and it will certainly be a different sight watching these guys hit with a mask on. But Didi pops one out for a 3-run home run. Bryce Harper, we've talked about how he likes to start the season hot. April is typically one of his best months. Well, if he can jump right into that at the end of July, August, the Phillies are certainly going to have a much better chance if we get 280, 300 Bryce Harper with the power compared to that 250 mark. On the mound, Aaron Nola looked excellent for the Phillies. He threw 5 one-hit shutout innings, walked 1, struck out 4. He was very sharp, only 67 pitches over those 5 innings. He looks ready to roll, and he'll be right around that 80, 85 pitch mark when it comes to opening day, as he's slated to start on the 24th against the Marlins. After him, the closer Hector Neris gave up and walked a guy in an inning. Standard Hector, without the pressure of a save situation. He was all over the place. Transitioning to the Nationals, Max Scherzer is the story from that side. 7 earned runs, 6 hits, 2 walks, 6 strikeouts, and 5 innings of work. I talked about it, the 2 3-run home runs, obviously leading to the 7 earned runs. But Scherzer's body language definitely lets you know that he certainly was well aware that this was a preseason or exhibition game. You could tell he wasn't as fiery or as upset as he would be during a regular season matchup, and he was very much still working on things, and results did not matter as much as execution or development, which is what spring training 2.0 should be, and what spring training typically is, hey, I'm going to work on the cutter in today because it's not my best pitch. I may give up some runs, but it's going to ultimately make me a better pitcher for when we come live here in about a week or so, and I'm throwing against the Yankees. So hopefully Scherzer shows up a bit better on Thursday night against Garrett Cole than he did here against the Phillies. But I certainly expect that to be the case, knowing Max. And offensively, the Nationals, not a ton going on. Adam Eaton had a hit. Eric Thames had a hit there at first base. Jake Knoll pinch hit, single RBI. Again, only 2 runs. So offensively, 3 hits. The Nationals very poor, and Scherzer getting knocked around. So we'll see if that continues. The next game on the list was the Cleveland Indians and the Pittsburgh Pirates. This one was on MLB Network. So if you were watching ball out there, you probably caught a bit of this one. And it was a comeback for the Cleveland Indians. A late comeback with 4 runs in the 8th, another one in the 9th to make things a 5-3 victory. On the Indian side, Cesar Hernandez, ex-Philly, didn't even realize he was out there in Cleveland playing for Terry Francona. He went 1 for 3. Let's see here. Christian Arroyo at third base, 1 for 2 with 3 RBIs. He had a big hit late in the game for him. Yu Chang had an RBI. as well as Greg Allen in center field with a late RBI. But Zach Plesac, 2 runs over 5 innings, no walks, 6 strikeouts. A solid outing for Zach, showing the control, showing that he's ahead of probably most pitchers here in the early on who have shown some issues in the walk department, not walking anybody over 5 hits, striking out 6. A solid outing and something Zach can certainly build off of. But Oliver Perez still chucking it. 1 inning, 1 run for him. A couple other guys there out of the bullpen that may or may not contribute here this year based on name alone. But looking at the Pittsburgh Pirates, unfortunately, losing this game, it may be a long summer. Once again, for you Yinzers out there in Pittsburgh, thanks for commenting on the show. I love the Yinzer comment, but it could be a long one. So they went more of the steady route when it comes to pitching. This will be a storyline to possibly keep an eye on if people go 5, 6 innings, 3 after that, or if you go 2, 2, 2, 2, since the rosters are expanded and you only want people to go through the lineup one time through, and that may benefit you. But Joe Musgrove, 3 innings, no runs. Stephen Brault, 2 scoreless. Chad Klugh, 2 scoreless. Kyle Crick had himself a tough outing, 1/3 of an inning, 2 hits, 2 walks, 4 earned runs, and he ultimately will take the loss. Offensively for the Pirates, Brian Reynolds in left field, 1 for 3. Colin Moran at third base, 2 for 3. Eric Gonzalez, shortstop DH, 2 for 3, and then Guillermo Herrera was 1 for 2 with 2 RBIs out in right field for the Buccos. And then the third game, again, this was the first night that any action was ever taking place. There were only 3 of them here. That was the New York Yankees and the New York Mets, the Subway Series. This will be a back-to-back nights here. They play Saturday. They'll play Sunday again. The Mets were the home game here on Saturday. I believe they're moving over to Yankee Stadium. Yes, they are, for Sunday's matchup, doing a home-and-home here across New York City. But 9-3 final for the New York Yankees. 12 hits, 9 runs. The Mets, 8 hits, 4 errors for the New York Mets. And not what you want to see as a Mets fan. You certainly don't want to kick the ball around because a lot of the regulars at least start these games. Hopefully those errors, again, I didn't watch this one, came late in the matchup when some replacements were in there. But if you have 4 of them, I'm saying at least 2 were done by regulars in the lineup there. So the Yankees offensively, Mike Tauchman, 3 for 5 at the top of the lineup. Gleyber Torres, 2 for 4. He looked good, solid swing, good at bats for Gleyber Torres at the top there. Giancarlo Stanton, he DH'd. He went 1 for 2. Scored a couple of runs. He got hit by a pitch as well, but he is just fine. Miguel Andujar, 2 for 4 with an RBI. He's one to look out if he's healthy. Clint Frazier was out there in right field, 1 for 3. Let's see here. Tyler Wade, he was 1 for 4. Offensively, oh man, let's see. Wasn't there a home run? Yeah, it was Clint Frazier. That's right. Clint Frazier hit a 2-run home run with the mask on. I knew Didi and the guy for the Yankees did it, but I just missed Clint Frazier here in my notes. But on the mound, Michael King, 4 innings, only 1 run, 3 strikeouts. Zach Britton threw an inning, gave up a run and a couple of hits, but he looks ready to go velo-wise, stuff-wise. Chad Green, scoreless inning. Tommy Cannell, scoreless inning. Adam Ottavino had a scoreless inning, and Ben Heller at the bottom there. So from the Mets side of things, again, 4 errors, not what you want to see defensively, as well as 8 hits. That's okay from the offensive side, but no clutch hitting for them. Pete Alonso led the way. He was the only guy with multiple hits. He went 2 for 4 with an RBI. Brandon Nimmo, 1 for 4. Michael Conforto, 1 for 2. J.D. Davis, 1 for 2. And then on the mound, Rick Porcello had a solid outing. I think there's a bit higher expectations than the results of this outing, but a nice last spring training outing here for Rick. He went 5 innings, gave up 3 runs, no walks, 3 strikeouts. Familia, he threw 1 2/3. He looked good, 2 strikeouts, no hits, no walks. It was nice to see him bounce back and look like a plus there out of the bullpen. That is one thing that Mets fans can take away from this, is you got a scoreless inning out of Dellin Betances and 1 2/3 scoreless out of Familia. So 2 2/3 scoreless from those 2 guys. Edwin Diaz, he did give up a run in 1/3 of an inning, so he continues to possibly be that version 2019 and not the previous ones from Seattle that he had, where he was an excellent all-star closer and they gave up a ton for him there. But those three guys on the back end are going to be the name that you're going to hear from the Mets side of things. So they'll hope that they continue to be strong moving forward. But those were the 3 games on Saturday. We had 4 games here on Sunday as of time of recording. A lot of these games are in process or have just recently started. I touched on it. We have the Orioles at the Phillies. That one right now looks to be 3-1 now, Orioles, here in the top of the 8th inning. Must have been a solo home run as I was talking to you guys here over the past couple of minutes. Of course, there was. But we also have the Yankees and Mets happening once again. That one here in the middle of the 4th is 2-0. Yankees currently giving you an update. The White Sox versus the Cubbies. That one's on ESPN. You guys can catch that one throughout the nation here today. That one is in the middle of the 1st or middle of the 2nd. There it is, 1-0 Cubbies early on. And then the Diamondbacks and the Dodgers is about to get underway here just in the next couple of minutes Sunday night. So those are your 4 matchups. Mets, Yankees. Yankees currently lead. Cubbies over the Sox. Orioles lead the Phillies. And then Diamondbacks, Dodgers. I couldn't decide there between D-backs and Diamondbacks, and I went Diamondbacks for everybody out there. But, let's see. The last news and tidbits here I have wrapping up the second segment today. Tanaka returned to the lineup in New York, or to working out, I guess. He's going to make a start here in the next couple of days. He obviously had that scary incident with Giancarlo Stanton where he was throwing live BP and Stanton ripped one right back off his head where he avoided scary injury, thank goodness. Cracked skulls, surgeries, things like that we have seen from those situations in the past. So it just seemed to be a bit of a concussion, kind of a bruising, just, stay out of light and out of, very stimulated situations, and you should be okay. So, he'll probably miss his first time through the rotation. You would think he'll miss one start, about a week or so. He'll need another rehab start to feel comfortable and be able to give it a go out there. But good news, Yankees fans. He's back. He's feeling better. It shouldn't be a long, extended absence for him at all, which was certainly feared the moment that this took place. But jumping around, the last thing I have here, Cole Hamels is going to start the year on the injured list. Atlanta, I wanted to bring this up in the first segment. I forgot about it, so looking at my notes here, Hamels is starting the year on the IL. He had problems in spring training with the shoulder. Now he's thrown bullpens here recently, and he's got some elbow fatigue or inflammation in the forearm, so he's going to shut it down for a week once again. And being a Phillies guy, obviously Cole has a special place in my heart from his 2008 run, World Series MVP, NLCS MVP. The guy was absolutely lights out for most of his career here in Philadelphia. The no-hitter the last year in Wrigley before he got traded to the Rangers. So I root for Cole. I don't want to see injuries, even though he is a Brave, and this could be a benefit for the Phillies if they are down Hamels. I think he's still a very good big league starter. But, man, it's going to be tough to see this year if Hamels is going to be effective at all. Because if you were having problems in March, we're months later here now, you're still having issues. This seems to be lingering effects, and it could be the body telling you, hey, man, we're starting to run out of gas here, and you really got to conserve some bullets. But hopefully Cole can be healthy this year. He can contribute and give Atlanta some quality starts. But that'll wrap it up here for the second segment of the GSMC Baseball Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network. I'm your host, Kevin Mahalik, as always. We'll pause right now for a word from one of our sponsors, one of our sister shows. But when we come back, we're going to talk about the history of baseball in regards to July 23rd and July 24th. Because a few months ago, you guys have been following the podcast. We did the opening day, what previous performances, biggest moments. Well, now I want to look at this date in the history of baseball with a couple of games on the 23rd and then opening day really being the 24th. I'm going to dive into some history that's happened on both of those days. And there's some good stuff here. So you guys are going to want to stick around. We'll be right back. This is the GSMC Baseball Podcast.
Tired of searching the vast jungle of podcasts? Now listen close and hear this out. There's a podcast network that covers just about everything that you've been searching. Hey! The Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network is here. Nothing less than a podcast bliss with endless hours of podcast coverage. From news, sports, music, fashion, cooking, entertainment, fantasy, football, and so much more. So stop lurking around and go straight out to the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. Guaranteed to fill that podcast itch. Whatever it may be. Visit us at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Follow us on Facebook and Twitter, and download us on iTunes, SoundCloud, and Google Play.
Welcome back, everybody, and thanks for listening to the GSMC Baseball Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network. This is episode 209 here Monday, July 20th. I am Kevin Mahalik. Thanks, everybody, for listening. We appreciate it as always. Do me a favor if you can, quickly. I know you're on your iPhone listening to this, most likely. Pull it out of your pocket, double tap that home button, head to Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. Check out the GSMC Baseball Podcast. Facebook and Twitter are the most active for us here, keeping you guys up to date on everything going on baseball-wise. Now that games will be starting here very shortly, we basically keep the pulse of the entire country. Each team will keep you updated on what's going on. You'll be alerted as to when the latest episode is available, what we're talking about, what we're looking at. It's the way to stay up to date with all the latest information, so you're going to want to head to Facebook, Twitter, search the GSMC Baseball Podcast, and check those out. So, as well, hey, leave us a review and a rating. I know Evan recently joined. He's probably asking you guys, but click 5 stars, write a review. We haven't had one here in about 2 weeks. That's not a problem. I know you guys love us here. You give us 5 stars. We have a 5 rating there on Apple Podcasts, which shout out to you guys. We very much appreciate your thoughts on the show and that you guys think so highly of it. That's awesome. We love bringing you guys great content here at the GSMC Podcast Network. So check out the other podcasts. Since you guys like this one, check out the basketball podcast, the hockey podcast, since those two are coming back. Check out the football podcast, since training camp is in 10 days and football has some health situations they got to look at. You'll stay up to date there. And if you're only into baseball and you want to check out cars or movies, music, news, politics, whatever it is, the podcast network has something that I'm sure would be excellent for you and you would find very entertaining. So leave us a review, write a review. We very much appreciate it. It goes a long way with helping us continue to grow and bring you guys awesome content. But jumping into the third segment here, like I teased at the end of segment number 2, I want to look at the history of July 23rd and July 24th. I've already looked at, opening day, the best moments of past, whether it was Kershaw, what did he do, a complete game and hit a home run in the same game. There were a lot of other situations. Babe Ruth did something back in the day as well. So now I want to look at July 23rd and July 24th. And the history on those days actually is quite plentiful. I was very much surprised with what ultimately took place on that day. And then even looking back to last year, this was a positive memory for me. It is just a personal situation. A story I'll share with you. It's not really a story. But in 2019, on July 23rd, basically the game of the year happened in Minnesota. The Yankees beat the Twins 14-2. They were down 8-2. Again, came back to win it in extra innings. And I was just fortunate enough, I'm located in the state of Pennsylvania, which is one of the 5 states in the country right now that allows legalized sports gambling. The rumor mill has it out there that number could double to as many as 10 by the end of 2020. So shout out there if you're not in one of those states currently. It could be coming to a market close to you. I'm not going to spoil any of them. I think it's Illinois, a couple other big ones out there. So you guys check it out, but I was just checking it out. I scrolled down. Yankees were down 8-2. They ended up being plus like 400. And I just had a feeling. I was like, this game's not over. The ball's flying out of the park. It's a warm, hot day. And I put a couple of bucks on the Yankees to come back. Ultimately, they won, and I won some nice amount of cash there on a whim with the Yanks winning 14-12 after coming back down 8-2. But being down 8-2 gets you high odds. It's typically not a smart bet, but I don't know. For some reason, my gut just told me that this one ain't over yet, and the Bronx Bombers were going to show up and make this one very much an entertaining situation. So that was the game of the year in 2019. That one took place on July 23rd. What else took place on the 23rd? I'll give you a list here. We'll start out with that day, then we'll cross over to the 24th. That has its fascinating own situations. But the 23rd here, in 2012, the Mariners traded Ichiro Suzuki to the New York Yankees. And I don't remember where I was exactly when that trade took place. I certainly remember being very surprised when it did. Ichiro spending his entire career in Seattle up until that point. Seattle being on the West Coast, having a Japanese kind of influence up there a little bit as well. He fit into the culture, and they really welcomed Ichiro. To see him be traded, I was certainly surprised by that bit. And here was the New York Yankees all the way across the country in the biggest market in America. I was just fascinated to see how a guy like Ichiro may be able to acquit himself to that type of situation. But he did well. He wanted to go play for somebody who was going to make the playoffs, in contention for that World Series ring. And ultimately, that year it didn't work out for the New York Yankees. But seeing Ichiro get traded is something that'll go down as a fascinating trade in the history of Major League Baseball. In 2009, Mark Buehrle was perfect for the Chicago White Sox on July 23rd. And this was the Mark Buehrle Perfection Game, which included potentially the best catch in baseball history. And I know that's a strong statement. And a few of you listeners out there, you have one moment that pops into your mind when you hear that sentence. When I say the best catch in baseball history, you have one or two flashes that pop up in your head. And honestly, this is one of them for myself. Obviously, everything is relative. I'm a 31-year-old. If you're listening out there as a 70-year-old, awesome. Kudos to you being in the podcast world. That's sweet. But second, you probably have a few more situations that you're thinking of that I wasn't even around for. So that's where, just from a personal perspective, this is one of them where I go, oh my God, I remember that. And that was the Dwayne Wise catch in center field in the ninth inning as a defensive replacement. Gabe Kapler, future Phillies manager, current San Francisco Giants manager. I was going to say former Philly manager. If you know, like at that point, how does that all work? But Gabe Kapler almost went yard, but Wise climbs the fence, robs the home run, and then continues to juggle it as he goes to the ground and ends up maintaining control and does indeed make the catch. And the reason I think it could be potentially the best catch in Major League history is the fact that it saved a perfect game. More or less. Again, top of the ninth. This wasn't the first inning when we didn't know what was going on. This is the top of the ninth where everybody in the entire country at this point is aware of what's going on. Because if you get to 7, 8, 9 innings of a no-hitter or a perfect game, you start to get the ESPN updates. You start to get the little ping that says, hey, check this out. So everybody knows what's up, and they check in to see Wise make this catch and this situation. It's just unbelievable. And I could watch that replay a handful of times. But that happened on July 23rd in 2009. So will we get a perfect game opening day? No, it's not even a 1% chance. These guys won't even go 9 innings. They'll be perfect, and they'll probably take them out. There's no way it's going to happen. So, oh, man. But in the year 2000, Pedro Martinez threw a complete game against the Chicago White Sox. There they are again, the White Sox showing up. But Pedro, complete game, 15 strikeouts. It was one of, I think, 3 times he had 15 strikeouts that year. He did it against the Orioles a couple times and against the White Sox. But this was the year Pedro basically had the best year pitching in the history of baseball. There I go again saying the history of baseball, but it's come up twice. That's why I'm doing this. These are big moments on this date in history. So Pedro, that year, just a 1.7 ERA, 1.8 in the middle of the steroid era when the ERA for the rest of the American League was like 4.3. or 4.7 or something along those lines. So one of the most impressive years in the history, and this was one of the best games that year for Pedro Martinez. But, there we go. Baltimore home run again. 4-1 now. Going to beat the Fightin' Phils. Jeez, just the Phillies bullpen. Going to be their Achilles heel this year. It really is. The rotation, the top end at least, going to be solid. The bottom end, you can mix and match. The offense should hit. I'm saying that. They only scored 1 run here tonight after scoring 7 on Saturday, but should hit. So we'll see. Man, these Phils, it's going to be fun. Baseball, right? Just talking about it live. Just Austin Davis, lefty, can't have it. He's not going to throw during the regular season, so it's fine. Can't get that upset. Back to July 23rd. Let's see, 1962, this is the last one I have here for that date. Jackie Robinson was elected to the Hall of Fame. So, obviously, everybody knows Jackie Robinson's story, number 42. It's retired across the league. They wear a Jackie Robinson Day where everybody does it now currently in Major League Baseball. Well, on the 23rd, he was elected into the Hall of Fame way back in year 1962. July 24th now, transitioning to the rest of opening day outside of, let's see, the Giants, Dodgers, Nationals, and Yankees. And that is 2004. It was the brawl between the Yankees and Red Sox. It was the Veritek, A-Rod, Martinez, Pedro throwing the coach to the ground. A brawl that really ignited that year and that rivalry and made what is the most electric postseason series potentially in history even better in 2004. Coming back from a 3-0 comeback, knowing the history they had and those specific teams. Again, this isn't the history of those organizations. It's those specific teams having a history of already having a brawl and hatred previously that summer. To be down 3-0 and have a comeback makes it that much sweeter for you Red Sox fans. Also on July 24th, way back in 1983, I say way back, but it really was now, man, almost 40 years at this point. But this was the pine tar incident. This was George Brett being called out at Yankee Stadium following a home run. He's got too much pine tar on the bat. Let's lay it down here across the plate. You're out of there. George Brett comes firing out of the dugout, going bananas, going absolutely bonkers, crazy. One of the most iconic videos in baseball history. Everybody knows the one I'm talking about. From the side, him sprinting out of the dugout, going crazy. But that happened on the 24th in 1983. So George Brett, he goes nuts. There's a brawl. And this really isn't baseball history, per se, on the field in regards to Perfect Game like Mark Buehrle, but still just tremendous fun situations to talk about. But back in 1966, in July 24th, Mickey Mantle hits home run 493 to pass Lou Gehrig. One Yankees legend passes another. Back in 1966, 493 was obviously very, very high on the charts back in the 60s there. So that was a huge moment in baseball. July 24th is also Barry Bonds' birthday. I don't have a specific situation here, but I did put that as I was researching the date. It came up. Obviously the home run king, depending on how you're looking at it. Career, one season, whatever it may be. Barry Bonds' birthday. In this one here, going all the way back, in 1938, Coach, and I'm doing air quotes. I know you guys can't see it since this is an audio entertainment platform, but Coach Babe Ruth won a home run derby against active professional players. The story goes, Ruth was coaching first base, came out before a game doing some BP, decided he was going to take on some of the pros at the time in a home run derby, ends up hitting more than the pros, showing that he's still got it. He's the king. Hey, what you guys have heard or seen is true. I'm the guy. This is what I do. And I'm dropping bombs here in BP. So just fascinating to hear a story like that. It really got me thinking. I'm going, okay, who could potentially do this today, or would I watch it? Who would I want to see? And I think the answer is yes. I think obviously this would be a YouTube entertainment style of internet platform and not something that should be thrown on ESPN. But if you're giving me a home run derby and I'm calling out Barry Bonds, Mark McGwire, we've seen is still in good shape. Bonds recently being a hitting coach is obviously still invested in baseball and interested in the game. Sammy Sosa, maybe he's a little bit too old, could be on this retired coaches team for the home run derby, going against the likes of who were the most recent home run derby winners. We had Pete Alonso, Bryce Harper could be on the squad, Vlad Guerrero Jr., since he was so impressive last year. There's another one. Put Vlad Guerrero Sr. on the retired side, the coach's side, quote unquote, and then let the kid Guerrero Jr. go on the active player side. But man, I would love to see Babe Ruth. He's probably how old at that point? 50 some years old. Go in there, pop a couple out, watch the active pros, not be able to reach his mark, and just be like, wow, this guy really was one of the best way back then. But also, I was told Babe Ruth was a huge guy back in the day, and he was only like 6'1" or 6'2". Is that right? I didn't research that, and I'm coming off the top of the cusp here, and I probably should before I announce it here on the podcast. But it truly, I don't think he was that huge, and to see a guy of that stature be able to pop that many home runs is something that's really, really fascinating. But, oh gosh, so the 23rd and 24th had some excellent days. Great game on the 23rd in 2019 last year. Buehrle was perfect. Pedro was excellent. Jackie Robinson was elected to the Hall of Fame. And then on the 24th, Yankees-Red Sox brawl. You had the Pine Tar incident, George Brett, and then Coach Babe Ruth winning a home run derby here. But that'll wrap it up for the third segment of the GSMC Baseball Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network. I'm your host, Kevin Mahalik. We're going to pause right now for a word from one of our sponsors and one of our sister shows. But when we come back, you guys know the drill here. Segment number 4, Sunday night recording, Monday episode. We dive into the Stratomatic and Baseball Reference simulations. And this is probably going to be the last time we're going to do this on Sunday night, because by next Sunday I'll have actual baseball to talk about with you guys here. But I do want to touch in every month or so. I really am fascinated to see how these computers think this year would have ended up had they played the 162 and things went on as normal, as to how they played out comparatively speaking with the 60 games here that we're actually going to get. So we'll dive into Baseball Reference. We'll dive into Stratomatic when we come back. But right now, we're going to take a break. This is the GSMC Baseball Podcast.
Want to know the latest in soccer? Then listen to the Golden State Media Concepts Soccer Podcast. From MLS, the World Cup, and the Premier League, we've got you covered. The latest updates, the hottest matches, and news on the league's top players. It's the Golden State Media Concepts Soccer Podcast.
David Beckham scores the goal to take England all the way to the World Cup finals.
Listen now.
Welcome back to the fourth and final segment of the GSMC Baseball Podcast. I'm your host, Kevin Mahalik. This is episode number 209 here on Monday, July 20th. Hopefully you have a good start to your work week out here. Everybody listening to this on Monday morning, we certainly appreciate it. From East Coast to West Coast out there, I know we have listeners across the entire country. So thank you once again for everything you do. If you could share this podcast with one of your friends this week, I ask you guys every week, just text one of your buddies one time a week. Say, hey, baseball's coming back. Check out this podcast. Kevin's breaking everything down. It's a great listen. Check it out. Mondays and Thursdays. Here's the link. Subscribe. You'll get it. You'll love it. If you do that once a week, if everybody does that once a week, we'll continue to grow and continue to explode as one of the best baseball podcasts that are available out there wherever you get your podcast. But diving into the fourth and final segment here, let's jump right into it. Baseball Reference simulation, Stratomatic simulation, compare and contrast. What are we looking at? Where do we stand? Baseball Reference, American League East, New York Yankees 12 games up on the Rays, who are only 500 at 50-50, as we're right around the 100-game mark here. If we were into an actual season this year, the Stratomatic simulation, they have the Rays 6 games up on the Yankees, both well over 500. So Tampa Bay, according to Stratomatic, going to be much better than Baseball Reference has. The Red Sox, Orioles, and Blue Jays seem to have fallen off in both simulations. So it's a 2-horse race in the American League East, and that seems to be the understanding if things were to be normal this summer. Obviously, in a 60-game sprint, anything can happen, but it seems to be those two are the favorites. Now, the American League Central, this could get interesting. Baseball Reference has the Indians absolutely dominating, 10.5 up on the Twins, and then the White Sox, Royals, and Tigers all under 500. If you look at Stratomatic, they have Cleveland dominating as well. Minnesota being in second place, Kansas City, Chicago, and Detroit all under 500. So man, they agree that the Indians are what we're looking at here in regards to the American League Central. The Twins are in wild card contention, which is fascinating because I think Minnesota is going to be closer to Cleveland than 10.5 and 6.5 here in the AL Central if this actual summer were to be taking place. Let's look at the AL West. The Oakland Athletics, Baseball Reference in first place. The Angels having a strong summer at 57 and 42, 2.5 games out. The Mariners now 2.5 games out. They're starting to fade. The Astros 8 games out, only 4 up. So it is a 3-horse race between the Athletic, Angels, and Mariners, but the A's seem to be establishing themselves as the team to beat. If you look at Stratomatic, they still think Houston is going to be the horse out there in the West. Oakland 18 games over 500, but 7 games back in the AL West. The Angels right around 500, so Baseball Reference has them 15 games over. Stratomatic says they're a 500 ball club. That'll be fascinating. The trio there of Oakland, LA, and Houston, who can prevail. So if you're looking at Baseball Reference, they got the Yankees, Indians, and A's. And then the wild card, both of them would come out of the AL West, and it would be the Angels versus the Mariners. According to Stratomatic, you're getting Tampa, Cleveland, and Houston winning those divisions, which means your wild card is Oakland versus Minnesota, with the Yankees a game and a half out, and really the only other team in contention. As we transition here to the National League, let's look at the NL East. The Washington Nationals 1 game up over the Atlanta Braves, both of them head and shoulders above the Phillies, Mets, and Marlins. According to Baseball Reference, the Phillies here a game over 500, right around it. Once again, that's been the status quo here the past couple of summers in the city of brotherly love. They were looking to buck that trend, but not according to Baseball Reference. Let's see, Stratomatic has Washington, Atlanta, 1-2, 4 games back is Atlanta. Philadelphia, look at that, 50 and 49, 50 and 49. So consistency for the Phils, according to the computers. But Washington, Atlanta, your top 2, really only your 2 vying for playoff consideration. The NL Central Baseball Reference goes St. Louis Cardinals, Milwaukee 8 games back, and everybody else under 500. If you go to Stratomatic and you look at the Central, they like Milwaukee. St. Louis is a game back. Chicago very much in the thick of things. Cincinnati in the thick of things. 4 teams within 3.5 games. Not the case there, according to Baseball Reference. If you look at the NL West, they got the Dodgers 22.5 up on the Rockies, but the Rockies over 500. The Dodgers at 76 and 24. Man, they could potentially be pulling to be the best team in the history of baseball there at that pace. That'd be fascinating. So Stratomatic has the Dodgers being very good as well, but they are high on the Padres, 59 and 41. That puts the Padres as the first wild card team in the NL. According to Stratomatic, you're getting the Nationals, the Brewers, and the Dodgers, and your wild card matchup is going to be San Diego and Atlanta, with St. Louis 1 game back, Chicago 1, Philadelphia 3.5, and Cincinnati at 3.5 in contention there. If you're looking at Baseball Reference, it's going to be Washington, St. Louis, and L.A., and then the wild card will be the Atlanta Braves versus the Colorado Rockies. So a little bit of a difference there in regards to teams and who could make it, according to Stratomatic and Baseball Reference. Let's look at some of the individual statistics here. Starting out with Baseball Reference, they like to use WAR when it comes to their statistical breakdown. We got Cody Bellinger at the top of the list at 6.3, followed by Juan Soto and Francisco Lindor, Mike Trout, Nolan Arenado, all the standard cast of crew that you guys have come accustomed to at the top of baseball's list. At the batting average, let's see, where is Michael Brantley? Okay, 372. A little bit down from last week. What was he, 379 or 384? He's bouncing around that list, but here we are in the middle of July. Like I said, about 100 games in, so 2/3 of the way, if you want to be fair. And Michael Brantley still hitting 372. That would be fascinating. But nothing to sneeze at here. Juan Soto at 342. Coming up at second place there. Let's see. We got Daniel Murphy at 340. Ozzie Albies at 331. So 4 guys all hitting over 330 in the Baseball Reference world. That would just be unbelievable to think about. Let's look at OPS. Juan Soto leads it at 1115. Bellinger over 1,000. Mike Trout over 1,000. And then Michael Brantley over 1,000. And anything over 1,000 is a ridiculous OPI, and it just means you're getting on base, you're hitting for power, you're hitting for average, you're doing it all offensively if you have OPI over 1,000. And let's get back to the old school style of stats, the ones that I still like to break down because they don't have all the advanced metrics here for the simulations. But home runs, Cody Bellinger leads the way with 32. He's being trailed by Nolan Arenado and Pete Alonso at 31. And then surprise, but Gurriel in Toronto at 30. Leading the way. So 4 guys just clipped the 30 mark here. Again, as we pass the 100 game mark for the simulated summer. And RBIs, Juan Soto has surpassed Yordan Alvarez. Soto with 98. He's about to break the triple-digit mark. You got Alvarez at 91. Lindor at 82. And, taking everything from there. So, a fascinating kind of stipulation there in Baseball Reference. Going over to stolen bases. Malik Smith got 51. Byron Buxton at 30. Man, so 21 ahead is Malik Smith there in Seattle when it comes to swiping bags in the simulation. Looking now at Stratomatic. Let's see offensive individual statistics here. They got Nick Madrigal leading the way here. The Chicago White Sox, wow, hitting 352. Jose Altuve, 346. Akiyama in Cincinnati, 342. Charlie Blackmon, 338. Herrera in Minnesota, 335. So nobody on the Stratomatic side close to the Michael Brantley 375, 380 mark that he's been fluctuating from here the past couple of weeks. But strong seasons nonetheless by the likes of Altuve, Blackmon, Madrigal, Akiyama, all hitting over or right at 340. Let's see, looking at hits, triples, home runs, here we go. Jorge Soler, 36 in Kansas City. Trevor Story, 32. And Gleyber Torres at 31. Only 3 gentlemen over 30, different names than we had in the Baseball Reference simulation. And then you got the likes of Pete Alonso, Reyes, Lindor, Bregman, 28, 27, 26. Mike Trout enters the conversation with 26. So still positive years for those individuals, but being outdone ever so slightly by some names. And Soler in Kansas City, oh man, is he on this average list? Yeah, so he's hitting 331. He's got 36 home runs and 102 RBIs. He's leading 2 out of the 3 Triple Crown categories there. Hiura next in line with 77. Nelson Cruz, 76. So he's 25 RBIs up and clear of everybody else. On the Baseball Reference size, we had somebody at 98 and 91. Well, Soler at 102. Wow, that would just be an unbelievable year through 100 games. 30 and 102 through 100 games. Whew, man. Soler, super impressive, according to Stratomatic. Let's see. Continuing down, stolen bases, VR 28, Yelich 27, Turner 26. Again, no Malik Smith on this side of things. I'm not exactly sure what's going on, if they don't think he's going to make the squad out there in Seattle or what exactly is taking place. But Malik Smith with 50 steals, according to Baseball Reference. And then VR leading the way with 28 on the Stratomatic side of things. Kind of a fascinating little story there that nobody really cares about, but I do because I'm invested now. I've been talking to you guys about this here for months, so we might as well see ultimately how things play out. I can't just read the first 10 chapters of the book when it's 15 chapters and then put it down because something better comes along. Still got to pay a bit of attention to it here, but transitioning here individually to the pitching side of things, let's touch on the Baseball Reference simulation. Okay, WAR for pitchers. Here we go. Max Scherzer, 5.4. They got Flaherty from St. Louis, Jack Flaherty at 4.7. We got Walker Buehler at 4.5 and Clayton Kershaw at 4.4. When it comes to ERA, Walker Buehler still under 2. He's at 1.99. Kind of fascinating to see here. Down the stretch, we still have Buehler and Kershaw, both Dodgers being 1-2 here on the list. Clayton Kershaw comes in with a 2.17 ERA. Nothing to sneeze at there for Mr. Kershaw. Then you get over to Max Fried, 2.37 for the Atlanta Braves. David Price, who will opt out this year, but they had him at 2.57. And then Scherzer, Flaherty, and the rest of them there in the high 2s. But Walker Buehler under 2 after 100 games. That would be an excellent, excellent summer. Steven Strasburg, he's leading the league in wins at 14. He's being trailed ever so closely by Shane Bieber. Who else? Alec Wood and Germain Marquis with 13 wins as well there. So Strasburg leading the way in Washington with 14 out of their however many wins. I can't remember off the top of my head here that we said Washington had according to Baseball Reference. Going down to strikeouts, Max Scherzer, he is 40 clear of Mr. Walker Buehler. Scherzer has 216. And number 2, Walker Buehler has 177. So Scherzer continues to strike out at a very high rate, according to Baseball Reference. We got Lucas Giolito there as well. Garrett Cole, Flaherty, DeGrom, Verlander leading the rest of the pack. When it comes to the bullpen side of things and saves, we have Gallegos with 27, Jansen with 26, Smith with 25, Diaz with 25. That'll be fascinating to see. Let's look at appearances here. We got Ray Black with 53, Corbin Burns, both of Milwaukee, with 53. So Baseball Reference says Milwaukee's going to be burning through that bullpen. But the NL Central seems to love it because we got Brevia in St. Louis with 52, a couple of others in the 50 mark, and only at 100 games. That's every other night. That's a ton of appearances for a relief pitcher early on. But wrapping things up here, talking Stratomatic ERA, we're looking at Clayton Kershaw at the top of the list, 207. So both supercomputers think he's going to be in the low twos once again with his ERA. He also leads the league in wins with 15. Yeah, let's see. Blake Snell, 2.25 ERA. Weaver, 2.49. Morton, 2.53. And Scherzer, 2.59. That's everybody in the 2.5 range or below. Like I said, Kershaw leads the way with 15 wins. Duffy with 12. Gray with 12. Scherzer with 12. So a lot of names that we've heard before. And let's see if we can find some other interesting stats here. This one, again, a little bit tougher to navigate. But saves, here we go. Yates with 33 in San Diego. Hader in Milwaukee, Diaz in New York, Hendricks out in Oakland, a lot of the cast and crew. Garrett Cole, 179, leads the league in strikeouts. We talked about Max Scherzer on the other side. Well, Stratomatic says Garrett Cole and Jacob deGrom. And it'd be fascinating to see if two guys from New York City can win the Cy Youngs this year. If Cole on that side, deGrom on that side, both of New York, 1-2 in strikeouts here according to Stratomatic. I think that'd be the first time it'd ever be done. Two Cy Youngs coming from the same city and from New York. It could certainly happen. I mean, Cole last year should have won it over Verlander. DeGrom, two-time repeating champion here, going for a third. Maybe because he's having some back issues, it won't go the way he wants it to. But really, it could and certainly happen. It's a storyline that I'll keep you guys updated in here for the rest of the summer. But that'll wrap things up here for today's episode of the GSMC Baseball Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network. I'm your host, Kevin Mahalik, as always. Once again, do me a favor, head to social media, head to Facebook, Twitter, check us out. Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Play, rate, review the podcast, do all that stuff that you do here to support individual content producers in the year 2020. I know I appreciate it. I know Evan appreciates it as well. But hopefully everybody has an excellent week out there. We are less than a week away from baseball. Like I said, Thursday's episode, we're going to preview Thursday night's games, get into ultimately the weekend and what I think is going to happen. So that's going to be a lot of fun, but that'll do it for today's episode. Have a great night, everybody. We'll talk to you again soon.
You've been listening to the Golden State Media Concepts Baseball Podcast, part of the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. You can find this show and others like it at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Download our podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, and Google Play. Just type in GSMC to find all the shows from the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network, from movies to music, from sports to entertainment, and even weird news. You can also follow us on Twitter and on Facebook. Thank you, and we hope you have enjoyed today's program.